Hello everyone. Welcome back to our Easy English Spark channel. I'm so excited you're here today, and I hope you're ready to boost your English listening and speaking skills while feeling right at home. In this episode, we'll take you through a thrilling 10-chapter adventure, starting with Chapter 1, A Morning at Sapphire Lake. Moving on to unexpected guests, coded notes, narrow escapes, and finally, Chapter 10, Unraveling the Truth. It's a simple story walkthrough, but you'll have plenty of chances to hear natural English, pick up new phrases, and build your confidence. So grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's light up your English journey. Chapter 1, A Morning at Sapphire Lake. Alex Harper sat at an outdoor table of the Highland Cafe just as dawn's first light began to filter through the towering pines that bordered Sapphire Lake. The air was cool and carried the faint scent of evergreen needles and damp earth. Steam curled lazily from his espresso cup as he wrapped his gloved hands around it, welcoming the warmth that contrasted with the crisp spring breeze. Across the placid surface of the lake, mist hovered in pale gray tendrils. Every few seconds, a lone loon called out, its cry echoing against the rocky shoreline. Nearby, cherry trees, still heavy with pink blossoms, shook loose a few petals that drifted down like gentle confetti. Sunlight, soft and golden, danced on the water, turning each ripple into a sparkling jewel. Alex leaned back in his chair and took a slow sip of coffee. He savored the rich, bittersweet flavor before setting the cup down and lifting his camera to his eye. From his vantage point, he could see the cafe's wooden deck stretching toward the water, its planks warm from the sun. He framed a shot of a small fishing boat drifting past a stand of birch trees, then lowered the camera and let out a contented sigh. He had come here to capture the essence of mountain villages, places where time seemed to move more slowly, where each morning held the promise of discovery. Over the past week, he'd visited countless towns in Colorado, but none had felt as serene, as full of quiet possibility as Sapphire Lake. Just then, the cafe's young barista emerged with a fresh pot of coffee. "More?" she asked, refilling Alex's cup before he even had to ask. He offered a grateful nod and a smile. As she turned away, he glanced across the road and caught sight of someone new. A woman had paused at the edge of a narrow side street. She wore a moss-green jacket, the collar turned up against the breeze, and carried a small leather satchel slung over one shoulder. Her auburn hair was loosely braided, and in that moment, the sunlight glinted on a single strand that had escaped to frame her face. Her eyes, a striking shade of green, met Alex's gaze for the briefest of seconds before she looked back toward a storefront window. Curiosity pricked at him. He watched as she tilted her head, studying the display of handcrafted pottery. Then, for a heartbeat, she glanced back at him again. With what? Recognition? Concern? There was something familiar in the way she smiled, even though Alex was certain they had never met. He set his camera aside and rose from his seat. His boots clicked on the wooden deck as he carried his mug with him, crossing the road with careful steps. When he reached her, she turned fully, her expression shifting from surprise to relief. "Alex?" she said, voice soft but steady. He froze. "I'm sorry. Do we know each other?" he asked, heart quickening. She hesitated, then offered him a small, nervous smile. I thought we met in Aspen at that mountaintop retreat," she said. "You were speaking about your travels." Alex frowned, searching his memories. He had given a talk in Aspen months ago, but he didn't recall her being there. Overhead, a pair of bald eagles wheeled against the blue sky as the cafe's patrons went about their mornings, oblivious to this strange reunion. "Perhaps," she continued, stepping closer and setting her satchel on a nearby bench. "My name is Lily Thornton. I've read your articles in Evergreen magazine. I knew I recognized you." Alex offered his hand. "Alex Harper. It's a pleasure, though I admit I'm a little confused." Lily laughed, a delicate sound that echoed like wind chimes. "This place is magical. It plays tricks on memory." He chuckled, feeling the tension ease. "It certainly has its charm." He gestured down the street. "Would you like to join me for another coffee?" Her eyes brightened. "I'd love that." As they walked back across the road together, the sun climbed higher, warming the crisp morning air. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was beginning. But for now, he simply breathed in the beauty of Sapphire Lake and the unexpected company unfolding beside him. Chapter 2. The Unexpected Guest. I was gathering my journal and camera gear when I noticed her again, Lily Thornton, stepping lightly across the sun-dappled cobblestones toward the Highland Cafe's terrace. The morning bustle had given way to a quieter lull. A few early hikers lingered over pastries, and the black and white tiled floor of the cafe gleamed where the barista had just swept away fallen petals. Lily paused at the railing, brushing a loose braid of hair from her face. Our eyes met, and for a moment I held my breath. There was an urgency in the way she lifted her chin, as though she had half a story to tell and half a secret to keep. She hesitated, then moved toward me. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she began, her voice low and hurried. I realized I never properly introduced myself. I slid a chair back and motioned to the empty seat across from me. "Please, sit," I said, although the invitation felt inadequate to contain whatever was fluttering in her chest. She sat and placed her satchel gently on the table, unzipping it just enough for me to glimpse a stack of neatly folded maps and a small leather-bound notebook stamped with the initials LT. She reached inside, extracted a pen, and tucked it behind her ear the way some artists do. I watched, curious. Lily paused, smoothing her hands across the tabletop, as though erasing invisible lines. I know it must have looked odd when I just walked up without warning, but I had to speak with you before you left. I set my coffee down, leaning forward. "I'm all ears," I said. The cafe's door swung open behind me, carrying in a soft rush of pine-scented air and the low hum of conversation, but it felt as though we were alone in a private alcove. Lily drew a slow breath. "I've been tracking mountain retreats much like you have. Places of solitude, spiritual renewal. But there's something different about Sapphire Lake. It isn't just the scenery." She unclipped a photograph from her notebook, an aerial shot of a jagged rock formation a few miles upriver. "I believe there's a hidden hot spring nestled in those cliffs. Local legend says it has healing properties, something the developers want to keep secret." My pulse quickened. I'd heard rumors of corporate interests eyeing the lake's environs for luxury lodges. "So, you're here to uncover it?" I asked. She nodded, eyes bright. "I came across your travel essays. You capture nuances most writers miss. I thought, maybe you'd help me." She paused, as if judging how much trust I deserved. I closed my notebook, already torn between my schedule and this unexpected adventure. "I'm intrigued," I admitted. "But why approach me so mysteriously? Why pretend we'd met elsewhere?" Her lips curved in a small, rueful smile. "I needed to know if you'd agree before word got out. And I wanted to see your reaction, in person." I studied her face, the way the morning light played across her cheekbones, the fine crease at the corner of her eye when she smiled. "All right," I said softly. "What's the plan?" Relief washed over her features. She shifted her satchel aside and spread out a detailed topographic map. "First, we'll head upstream along Pine Creek Trail. It's a 2-hour hike, but the path forks near the old miner's shack. From there, there's an unmarked route that descends to the spring. I've sketched it here." She tapped a faint pencil line cutting through elevation contours. I need your camera for documentation, photos, maybe even a short video narrative. I nodded, imagining the footage. Steam rising from a hidden pool at dawn, the surrounding limestone glistening with mineral deposits. I'm in, I said, but we leave at first light tomorrow, no detours. She laughed, a brief melodic sound that felt like permission. Agreed. Meet me here at 6 a.m. And Alex? She hesitated, then added quietly, "Thank you for not walking away." I lifted my coffee in a silent toast. To secrets revealed and good company. She returned the gesture, and in that moment the lake glimmered behind her like a promise. Unscripted. Chapter 3. Whispers of Danger. I met Lily at 6 sharp the next morning, the sky still bruised purple at the edges as dawn struggled to break. I shouldered my pack, water, snacks, my camera hanging ready, and we stepped onto the Pine Creek Trail, the wooden footbridge creaking under our boots. Mist curled around moss-covered boulders, and each step kicked up dew that glinted like a scattering of diamonds in the weak light. "Keep your voice down," Lily whispered, glancing back over her shoulder as though expecting someone to appear. At any moment, we fell into an easy rhythm, her light, precise footsteps ahead and my slower pace behind, stopping occasionally to record a bird call or snap a shot of sunlight piercing through cedar branches. After 20 minutes, the official trail veered left toward the old miner's shack. Lily paused where the path forked and unfolded her hand-drawn map. "This way," she said, pointing to a faint pencil line that led off down a narrow, overgrown route. The undergrowth was thick, ferns brushing our knees and blackberry brambles, snagging our pants. But she hacked at the air confidently with a hiking pole. I followed, ducking under low branches. Not 5 minutes in, I noticed the path underfoot had footprints that weren't mine. They were larger, deeper, with a heavy heel tread, definitely not wildlife. I slowed, crouched, and ran my fingers over a muddy imprint. It looked fresh. Lily saw me examining the print. "We're not alone," she said quietly. A bead of sweat gathered at her temple even though the air was cool. "He's been here." I glanced upward through the skeleton of tree trunks and found it. A flash of silver hair above a boulder 10 yards away. The man was crouched, watching us, utterly still. My heart slammed against my ribs. I raised my camera instinctively, but the click of the focusing lens felt too loud in the hush of the forest. We ducked behind a fallen pine, hearts hammering. "What do we do?" I hissed. Lily sucked in a calming breath. We keep moving, but carefully. We can't let him see us. She reached into her pack and withdrew a small mirror, angling it to peer around the trunk. The man stood, brushed his pant leg as if dusting himself off, and then melted back into the brush on the trail he'd come. "It's Vance," she said under her breath, the name she'd whispered the night before, the developer's enforcer, rumored to be untraceable. Adrenaline sharpened my senses. Every rustle of leaves sounded like a footfall. Our soft whispers bounced off ancient trees. We edged forward, sliding our boots across damp pine needles, careful not to snap a twig. When the undergrowth finally opened onto a rocky glen, the air smelled hot, like steam or sulfur. We'd arrived. Lily motioned for me to crouch behind a granite outcrop. From this vantage point, I could see the entrance to the hidden cavern where the spring should lie. Steam rose in a thin wisp, promising emerald waters and mineral riches. But at the cavern's mouth, Vance stood waiting, arms folded, his silver hair glinting like a warning beacon. My mind raced. If we tried to sneak past, he'd intercept us. If we confronted him, he might call in backup, but we had evidence to capture, and the world needed to see it before the corporation sealed the area off forever. Lily laid a hand on my arm. On 3, we dash to the spring, film everything, then we bolt back to the forks and vanish. I swallowed. 1, 2, 3. We sprinted from cover, camera in hand. Vance lunged forward, swearing, but Lily dodged to the right and I veered left, weaving between rocks as steam brushed my face. I kept the camera trained on the pool, vivid turquoise, fringed with mineral terraces. I clicked rapid-fire shots, the rising steam, the swirling eddies where waters met rock, the ferns dripping with moisture. A shout from behind. Vance had found the path. He crashed through brush, boots pounding. We didn't stop to see if he'd fire a warning shot. We ran back the same way we'd come, lungs burning, adrenaline spiking with every leap over roots and slide down mossy slopes. When we burst into the clearing at the main trail, I glanced back. Vance stood at the entrance to the hidden track, silhouette framed by steam. He raised his hand as if to strike, and then without warning turned and stalked back into the trees. Lily and I didn't pause. We barreled down the miner's path until it merged with the main trail, then slowed to a walk only when we were sure he'd lost interest. My hand shook as I checked the photos. Hundreds of frames, each one a piece of proof. She exhaled, laughter, and relief mingling in her voice. We did it. I nodded, heart still racing. The danger was real, the pursuit far from over. but for one blazing moment, we'd claimed the secret of Sapphire Lake and captured it for everyone to see. Chapter 4. A Push and a Narrow Escape. I needed time alone to process what had happened at the hot spring. So late that afternoon, I set out for Lakeside Grove Park, just a 10-minute walk from the Highland Cafe. The sun was dipping low behind the pines, casting long amber shadows across the winding gravel paths. A cool breeze drifted off the lake, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine resin. The world felt hushed by the hush of evening, perfect for clearing my head. I followed. The path passed a small wooden boathouse, its peeling paint glowing copper in the golden light. A family of ducks paddled in a calm inlet. A solitary heron stood statue still on a fallen log. I raised my camera to capture the moment, then lowered it with a deep exhale. Everything felt so serene. Too serene, perhaps, after the adrenaline of the morning. I continued along the shore, where a narrow road hugged the water's edge. There was almost no traffic, just the occasional cyclist coasting downhill, and the distant drone of a green delivery van making its rounds. I rounded a bend and saw the van's taillights disappear around the next curve. I paused to text Lily, checking in, making sure she was safe, and put my phone back in my pocket. A moment later, I felt a sudden pressure in my lower back. Strong, insistent, someone had shoved me hard. I stumbled forward, arms flailing, as I went off balance toward the road. "What?" I managed to gasp, but before I could steady myself, I was sliding onto my hands and knees in the gravel next to the asphalt. At that instant, the delivery van rounded the corner at speed. I heard the engine roar, the screech of tires as the driver slammed on the brakes. Time slowed. I could see the van's front bumper yawing toward me, inches from my outstretched hand. Gravel spitted between the tire treads. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would burst through my chest. And then, thank goodness, something yanked at my jacket sleeve. A cyclist had come careening downhill, spotted me in danger, and flung himself sideways. He caught my arm, rolled me backward off the pavement, and shoved me behind a row of parked cars, just as the van braked to a smoky halt. I collapsed fully onto the grass verge, gasping for breath. The van's horn blared in frustration as the driver peered over his wheel, eyes wide. The cyclist, tall, lean, wearing a navy hoodie and a battered helmet, stood beside me. "You okay?" he panted, brushing dirt from his gloves. I sat up, chest heaving. I think so," I managed. My knees ached, My palms stung from the gravel burn, but I was alive. Thank you. That was close. He offered me a hand. You're welcome. You just appeared in the road. He glanced back at the van's driver, who was now waving angrily. You need to be careful. This place isn't always as peaceful as it seems. I nodded, finally noticing my pulse hammering in my ears. I know. Someone pushed me, I said, voice raspy. Deliberately. The cyclist's brow furrowed. Pushed you? Are you being followed or... I shook my head to clear the dizziness. I don't know yet. But I saw him. Just before I was shoved. A man with silver hair standing in the trees watching. His eyes widened. Silver hair? Like an older gentleman? Tall, thin, I said, wincing as I tried to stand. My legs felt shaky, but I squared my shoulders. Exactly. I think he's behind this. The cyclist pressed a water bottle into my hand. Here, you might need this. He didn't introduce himself, just gave a curt nod before hoisting his bike and pedaling off toward the exit gate. I watched him go, then turned my gaze back up the road. The delivery van had already disappeared around the bend, its engine fading. The woods beyond were gathering shadows, and somewhere in the gloom I was certain I'd glimpsed that silver flash again, watching, waiting. I took a slow sip of water and let the cool liquid steady me. My camera dangled from my hand, a reminder of everything I still needed to document. The lake lay quiet at my side, as if nothing had happened. But I knew otherwise. Now, more than ever, I understood that the man in silver would stop at nothing, and the next time, I might not be so lucky. Chapter 5. The Cryptic Note. I returned to my cabin at the lakeside retreat just as dusk settled over Sapphire Lake. The sky bled from rose to violet, and lanterns along the dock flickered on, casting long shadows across the water. My shoulders ached from the day's events. First the secret spring, then the man who'd shoved me into the road. I felt the weight of it all pressing down, and all I wanted was a hot shower and a chance to clear my head. Inside, the cabin was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater and the distant call of loons. I dropped my pack by the door, unstrapped my camera, and flicked on a single lamp. Its warm glow revealed a small writing desk beneath a shuttered window, and the bed's crisp linen looked impossibly inviting. I peeled off my jacket and shook out my hair, still damp with sweat from the hike. Then I did something I almost never did. I lay flat on my back, staring at the wooden ceiling, letting the ache in my legs settle into a dull throb. After a few Minutes of silence. I realized I'd left my journal on the desk. Sitting up, I glanced around and froze. On the polished wood, perfectly centered between my open notebook and the stacked hotel brochures, lay a single slip of paper, folded into a sharp triangle. My pulse sped as I crossed the room and picked it up. The paper was heavy stock, cream-colored, as though ripped from a personalized letterhead. No stamp, no envelope. Whoever left it had slipped it in while I was out. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. Inside, in neat cursive handwriting, were 3 simple lines. Meet me at the Fairmont, Angel Island. Friday at 3 p.m. Ella, my breath hitched. Angel Island, 2 hours by ferry from San Francisco. The Fairmont. It was the only luxury hotel on the island, its turrets and terraces overlooking the bay, and L could mean only one person, Lily Thornton. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the note clutched in my palm. Questions tumbled through my mind all at once. Why the secrecy? Was she luring me into another trap set by Vance? Or worse, someone else? Or was she truly in danger and needing my help? The memory of his cold eyes as he watched us that morning by the spring rushed back. If Lily had uncovered evidence, maybe she was now being pursued too. I stood and paced the room. Outside the window, lantern light danced on the lake, turning each ripple into a trembling star. I pinched my forehead, trying to think clearly. There were logistics to consider. The ferry schedule, the cost, the fact that I'd barely slept the night before. Yet something inside me stirred, a vow that I wouldn't leave her standing alone against whatever forces were aligned against us. I laid the note on the desk and opened my journal. My entries from the hot spring expedition, my scattered sketches of the hidden cavern. Each page was a testament to our discovery and the danger it carried. I skimmed my final words from that morning. We must publish this before they bury the truth. Lily had risked everything to bring this secret to light. Could I abandon her now? I sat, pen in hand, and drafted a reply. I'll meet you. Friday, 3 p.m. Fairmont, Angel Island. Be careful. I hesitated, then underlined, be careful, twice. Folding the paper neatly, I tucked it inside my notebook and closed the cover. Next came preparations. I packed my camera bag with extra batteries, emergency snacks, and 2 water bottles. I slipped a small flashlight into my pocket. There might be no lights on parts of the island, and stashed a pocket knife in the belt loop of my jeans. Finally, I set my alarm for 5 a.m., giving me plenty of time to catch the 6:30 ferry. As I turned out the lamp, the cabin fell into darkness, the only light the soft glow of the lake through the curtains. My mind raced, but beneath the adrenaline, there was a calm resolve. Tomorrow I would cross the bay, face whatever lay ahead, and meet Lily Thornton at the Fairmont. Whether friend or trap setter, she needed me, and I wouldn't let her down. Chapter 6. Racing to San Francisco. I slid behind the wheel of my rental SUV just before midnight, heart pounding with purpose. The oil lanterns at Lakeside Retreat had long since guttered out, and the only light came from a sliver of moon above Sapphire Lake's mirror-still surface. I double-checked the folded ferry ticket in my coat pocket. Friday 6:30 a.m. departure from Pier 41, and steered onto the winding forest road that led back to Highway 101. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth through the open window. My headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating towering Douglas firs that leaned overhead like silent sentinels. Radio static hummed until I finally found a late-night jazz station, soft piano chords easing the tension in my shoulders. I set the cruise control to 55 mirror and settled in for the nearly 6-hour drive to San Francisco. At each rest stop, I poured a cup of strong black coffee and checked the rearview mirror. No silver-haired figure trailed me, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Mile markers clicked by, 20, 40, 60. Redwood forests gave way to vineyards glowing dimly under orchard lights. By 3 a.m., the sky edged toward pale indigo, and I crossed the Santa Rosa city limits, headlights reflecting off dew-slick pavement. Just after dawn's first blush, I crested a hill and caught my first glimpse of the Bay Bridge in the distance. Its cables slicing the sky like steel nerves. Traffic was light. The city still slumbered beneath a veil of morning fog. I navigated the familiar curves of the Presidio, past silent guardhouses and pine groves, then descended into the financial district, where neon hotel signs flickered on sleepy sidewalks. My destination was a small bed and breakfast near Fisherman's Wharf, the harbor house, its wrought iron sign swaying in the faint breeze. I pulled into a cobblestone courtyard bordered by climbing ivy and pressed the buzzer. "Check in?" The innkeeper, a kindly woman with silver spectacles, appeared and handed me an old-fashioned metal key. Room 4, second floor, overlooking the bay. Inside, the room was compact but warm. Dark oak floors, a brass-framed bed draped in embroidered quilts, and lace curtains parting to reveal water and cranes at Pier 39. I set my camera on the desk, filled the iron kettle and held it over the gas flame until it whistled sharply. While the tea steeped, I pulled my notebook from my journal bag and reread the cryptic lines. Meet me at the Fairmont, Angel Island. Friday at 3 p.m., LA Pulse. Of excitement coursed through me. Tomorrow afternoon, I would stand on that island terrace and confront Lily's secret, or step into a perilous trap. I dressed in layered clothes, long-sleeve shirt, light fleece, waterproof jacket, and stowed extra batteries, memory cards, and my phone charger into my camera bag. My boots, caked with the red clay of Pine Creek Trail, waited by the door. Outside, gulls cried and distant foghorns boomed, but within the harbor house I felt cocooned in anticipation. Sleep came in fitful bursts, dreams of steam-shrouded springs, the man with silver hair looming over me, Lily's green eyes filled with both hope and fear. I awoke, once at 2 a.m., again at 4 a.m., each time jolting upright, convinced I'd overslept. By 5 a.m., I surrendered and dressed quietly in the hallway's dim lantern glow, careful not to disturb other guests. At 5:30 a.m., I descended the creaking staircase with my bag slung over one shoulder and stepped onto the dew-damp cobblestones. A taxi pulled up at my request, its engine rumbling awake in the hushed street. We wound through empty avenues until we reached Pier 41, where lanterns lined the docks and ferry workers in orange vests prepared the morning run. The water was dark and still, broken only by gentle lapping against pilings. I flashed my ticket for the Angel Island ferry, carrying prospects of both reunion and revelation, and boarded as the first tendrils of pink light touched the horizon. The wake cut a sharp white line behind us as the city skyline emerged from fog like a ghostly cathedral. I stood at the rail, hands gripping the cool metal, watching Seacliff's rolling hills recede and the Golden Gate's towers emerge in the dawn glow. In my pocket, my phone buzzed once. No new messages. My journal lay tucked inside my jacket, empty pages waiting for the story that would unfold. 3 hours more, and I would be at the Fairmont's grand doors. 3 hours more, and I would finally learn why Lily Thornton had risked everything to write just one letter, and why she needed me there at exactly 3 p.m. Until then, I watched the bay awaken under a fiery sunrise, every moment a step closer to the truth. Chapter 7. Crossing to Angel Island. I arrived at Pier 41 just as the 6:30 a.m. ferry to Angel Island was casting off. The dock was quiet, only a handful of early commuters and a few tourists clutching cameras, so I stepped aboard without jostling. The ferry's engines chugged steadily as we eased away from the dock, and I made my way up onto the outer deck where the chill sea breeze slapped against my fleece jacket. Below me, the bay water rippled dark green, alive with morning light. Behind us, the city skyline slid slowly out of sight. The Transamerica Pyramid, the glinting glass facade of the Embarcadero Center, and the Golden Gate Bridge's towers looming through a bank of low-hanging fog. A gull wheeled overhead and cried out, its voice swallowed instantly by the ferry's diesel roar. I closed my eyes for a moment and let the vibration of the deck settle through my boots. I had driven through moonlit highways, caught a ferry, before sunrise, and now every nerve in my body hummed with expectancy. Stepping inside, I found a narrow row of wooden benches. I sat beside a family of 3, parents whispering behind steaming cups of coffee, a small boy clutching a comic book, and pressing his face to the glass. I pulled my camera from its case and ran my thumb over the shutter, reminding myself how capable it was. Then I leaned my head back against the wall and watched the water churn beneath the hull. After a few minutes, the ferry's purser, an older man in a dark blue uniform, came by collecting tickets. I handed mine over. He glanced at the name, Harper, and offered a polite nod. "Enjoy the crossing," he said. His voice was low, warm, carrying a hint of a New England accent. I managed a quick "thank you" and returned to the deck. Back outside, the wind was sharper, tugging at the ends of my hair. I wrapped both hands around a metal rail and peered ahead through swirling mist. Angel Island emerged like an emerald, among gray waves, pine-covered hills rising steeply above rocky cliffs, centuries-old eucalyptus lining narrow trails. The Fairmont's turrets peeked through the trees, their white stone walls standing out against the dark foliage. Halfway across the channel, I noticed a pale blue convertible skirting the opposite shore, its engine purring faintly. It didn't match the rental SUV I'd left behind, but the color reminded me of the note. "Meet me at the Fairmont?" Could it be Lily's? I squinted against the glare and saw no one behind the wheel. The car slipped behind a cluster of boats and vanished from sight. A sudden jolt told me we were crossing the swell from a passing cargo ship, and for a heartbeat I doubted everything. The hidden spring, the shove in the park, the cryptic letter. But the next crest of the ferry set my feet steady, and I refocused on the island's shore. The promise of answers lay just ahead. I made my way down to the lower deck, where the waves slapped against the hull in wet, rhythmic slaps. The air smelled of salt and diesel, and something faintly of eucalyptus. I checked my watch. 7:10 a.m. Plenty of time before the 3 p.m. rendezvous, and yet each passing minute felt loaded. I flipped open my notebook and reviewed my observations. How Lily's eyes had gleamed with determination. How Vance's silver hair had glinted like a warning. I wrote a few quick bullet points. Possible escape routes at the hotel, number of security cameras I'd observed in the lobby photos earlier, the probable sighting of that blue convertible. Planning ahead might be the only way to keep one step in front of whoever was hunting us. Upstairs, the ferry's horn blasted, a deep, mournful note, and a deckhand called Angel Island. The bow ground against the landing platform. I hoisted my bag over my shoulder and threaded through the other disembarking passengers, each stepping onto solid planks with anticipation in their eyes. As I strode off the ramp, I could see the Fairmont across a narrow lawn, tall arched windows, a sweeping veranda, and wrought iron balconies draped in climbing roses. The clock tower high on the hotel's east wing showed 7:20 a.m., hours until our meeting. Yet, despite the tranquility of this historic island, every nerve in me screamed that danger still lingered in the shadows. I took a final breath of the salt-tinged air, adjusted the strap of my camera bag, and headed up the gravel drive toward those grand doors. Each step brought me closer to Lily Thornton and to the secret she'd risked her life to share. Chapter 8. Tea in the Mist. I pushed open the heavy mahogany doors of the Fairmont's tea room and was immediately enveloped in a warm cloud of steam-scented air. Polished cherrywood tables and high-backed chairs were arranged in neat rows, atop hand-woven Persian rugs. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their prisms catching the soft morning light that filtered through arched windows draped in ivory silk curtains. Outside, mist clung to the manicured lawns, turning the hotel's turrets and spires into the silhouettes of a fairy tale castle. I paused at the entrance, heart pounding. The tea room was almost empty, just two figures seated at a corner table by the window. The first was Lily Thornton, dressed in a pale blue wrap dress that mirrored the morning fog. Beside her sat Ethan Cole, the documentary filmmaker she'd introduced me to earlier. He wore a crisp white shirt and looked every bit the picture of calm professionalism. But when our eyes met, I saw tension flicker across his face. "Lily," I said softly, stepping forward. She looked up, startled at first, then relief spread across her features. "Alex," she whispered, lightly brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. She stood, smoothing her dress with trembling fingers. "Thank you for coming," I moved around the table and slipped into the chair Ethan held out for me. The silver-haired man, Victor Vance, was nowhere in sight, but every polished surface felt like it could hide a pair of watchful eyes. A waiter appeared almost at once, bowing slightly. His crisp black vest was perfectly pressed, and he offered a silver tray with a porcelain teapot, 2 matching cups, and a small dish of lemon slices and sugar cubes. "Tea?" he asked, voice mellifluous. I nodded, and he poured hot amber liquid into each cup, the steam rising in gentle spirals. Lily wrapped her hands around the cup, inhaling the fragrant blend of bergamot and Earl Grey. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything by letter," she said, voice low. "It was not just the hot spring, and it wasn't just Vance I feared. My father has other assets." My fingers traced the teacup's delicate handle. "I know you risked a lot to bring me here," I said, "but I need the full picture, Lily." She took a slow sip, eyes on the swirling tea. "Right after we left the spring, I found a set of blueprints for a subsurface pipeline, buried not far from the cavern entrance. It's designed to siphon water directly from the lake to a resort he's building on the mainland. That pipeline would destroy the fragile ecosystem, and anyone who exposes it will be silenced. Ethan leaned forward. "I've seen corporate cover-ups," he said quietly. "But this is personal for you." Lily's lips quivered. "They already tried to intimidate me in Vancouver. Vance pushed Alex into the road, and then they shot at us in the park. I thought a public setting like this, with staff and other guests, would be safe enough for a meeting." I glanced at the windows. The fog lay thick against the glass, but I could make out the shapes of hotel staff moving along the veranda. "Did you see him arrive?" I asked. She shook her head. "He hired a boat at dawn. He's shadowing every route in, never by land, always from the water. I didn't expect him to be bold enough to come inside." Just then, a low murmur from near the doorway caught my attention. I turned to see Victor Vance stepping into the tea room, his silver hair neatly combed, a long black overcoat draped over one arm. He paused, surveying the room with cool, calculating eyes. When they settled on our table, he offered a polite nod, as if acknowledging guests rather than prey. My heart thudded against my ribs. I set my teacup down and rose slowly, careful not to startle the waiter. Lily's hand found mine under the table, fingers tightening. Vance approached, each step measured. He hovered beside our table, leaning forward just enough that Lily and I could feel his presence. "Miss Thornton," he said, voice low and smooth, "you really should have stayed in Whistler. This is bigger than you realize." He cast a sidelong glance at me. "And you must be Mr. Harper." He extended a hand, but I didn't take it. His eyes glinted with warning and amusement. "What do you want, Vance?" Lily's voice was steady but fierce. "Leave us out of this." He smiled, thin, humorless. "I'm simply ensuring nothing you publish interferes with progress. But you do understand progress, don't you? After all, progress is why you left your little cafe by the lake." I met his gaze. Progress at the cost of an entire lake and people's livelihoods isn't progress. It's destruction. He straightened, nodding as though impressed by my comeback. "Then I suggest you finish your tea quickly." With that, he turned on his heel and walked toward the door, leaving a swirl of fog and tension in his wake. Lily exhaled, and I sat back down. Our tea sat untouched in its pristine cups. The waiter hovered, uncertain. I waved him off gently. We stared at each other across the table, silence stretching between us like the gray morning. Finally, Ethan cleared his throat. "We need to get this on camera," he said, producing his small digital recorder. "Everything you just told me, your father's pipeline, Vance's intimidation, we need a statement." Lily shook her head. "If they catch wind of it..." Her voice trailed off. I reached over and placed my hand over hers. "It's too late for secrets. We expose this today, or it's buried forever." She met my gaze, resolve shining in her green eyes. "Then let's finish our tea and let the mist carry our words out into the world." Outside, the fog curled against the windows, as though eager to swallow the hotel whole. But inside the tea room, at that ornate corner table, the three of us braced ourselves for the storm we were about to unleash. Chapter 9. The Shooter Revealed. I barely have time to press record on Ethan's digital camera when the tea room doors burst open and Victor Vance steps inside like a cold wind. The crystal chandelier trembles overhead, scattering prisms of light across linen-draped tables. Lily and Ethan freeze, teacups halfway to their lips. I feel my pulse spike in my throat. Vance pauses at the threshold, surveying the room with narrow, calculating eyes. His overcoat flares behind him as he strides toward us. Patrons turn in their seats, startled whispers rippling through the polished space. I stand, heart hammering against my ribs. "Victor!" I say, voice steadier than I feel. You've made your point. He stops a bare 2 meters away. For a moment the air holds its breath. Then in one fluid motion, he slips his right hand into the inside pocket of his coat and, before any of us can react, pulls out a slim black pistol. The barrel glints in the morning light. A collective gasp echoes through the tea room. A waiter stumbles backward against a marble pillar. Lily's face drains of color. Ethan grips the edge of the table so hard his knuckles whiten. Step away, Vance warns, voice low and dangerous. He levels the gun at me first, then at Lily, before resting it on the table's surface. You have exactly 2 minutes to delete every recording you've made today. Every file, every photograph. Then you leave this island and never speak of me again. My camera still whirs in my hand, lens focused on his pale, unreadable face. I swallow hard. You'll have to do better than that, I say, trying to keep my voice calm. The moment you fired that shot in the park, the moment you shoved me into the road, this is already out of your control. He sneers. You overestimate your importance. He glances at Ethan, who's backed Lily into her chair. And you, Mr. Cole, you think you can document every crime I commit? Delete your footage too. Ethan shakes his head, jaw clenched. Not a chance. Suddenly, Lily pushes her chair back and lunges toward the bell beside the door. But Vance is faster. He slams his foot onto the table's edge. The teacups clink and skid, sugar cubes rattling like gunfire. Lily's hand hovers over the bell. Her breath catches. Violet steam swirls from her untouched tea. I take a half step forward. Victor! In that instant, Ethan springs up and throws himself between Vance and Lily. He yells, "Get back!" and slams into the man's raised arm. The pistol swivels, and a deafening crack fills the room. Hot air snaps past my cheek. Porcelain shards rain down as the bullet splinters a china saucer against the wall. Chaos erupts. Lily screams. The chandelier shudders above us. I dive toward them, knocking the camera to my side, grabbed only by reflex. A waiter and a chef charge. In from the kitchen doorway, 2 massive men in white aprons. They tackle Vance to the floor, wrestling his arm away from his chest. He kicks out, but the chef pins his wrist, forcing the gun skitter across the oriental rug. Ethan yanks Lily behind him. I scoop up the pistol and throw it under a sofa. Patrons flee to the corners, eyes wide, cups and plates abandoned on tables. I step between Vance and my friends, chest heaving, ready to defend them if he breaks free. The tea room door bursts open again. 2 uniformed police officers flood in, drawn by the gunshot. They shout commands, Hands where we can see them. Vance slumps, dazed, his silver hair matted with sweat. Ethan presses Lily's shaking hand. Lily's eyes glisten with tears and relief. One officer cuffs Vance's wrists behind his back. The other kneels to inspect the scene, picking up fragments of the broken saucer. He nods at me. "Sir, are you all right?" I nod, voice still catching. "Yes, thanks to him." I gesture toward Ethan and the staff. The lead officer holsters his pistol and radios for backup. Vance glares at us, silent fury in his eyes. I step forward. "Detective Harris," I say from earlier briefings at the station. "Vance has been intimidating and attacking me, and attempted murder." I steady my voice. "I have evidence of his actions, and of Thornton Enterprises. Plans to destroy the lake." Detective Harris nods curtly. "We'll take statements upstairs." He waves at an officer escorting Vance. "Secure the scene." Lily wraps her arm around my waist as we move toward the staircase. Glass crunches underfoot. A fine dust of chandelier crystal sparkles in the sunlight. The tea room falls silent except for distant sirens and the soft murmur of frightened staff. As we climb to the private interview rooms, I slip an arm around Lily. "It's over," I whisper. "He can't hurt us now." She leans against me, voice a breathless murmur. "Thank you for everything." I swallow. "We finished our tea," I say with a half smile. "And now we get the truth on record. For good." Behind us, in the ornate tea room below, the shattered fragments of porcelain glint like broken promises. But as Vance's footsteps echo down the hall, I know we've turned the tide. The shooter has been revealed, and his threats will no longer go unanswered. Chapter 10. Unraveling the Truth. I stepped off the elevator at the Central Precinct's witness interview floor with Lily and Ethan at my side. The air inside the narrow hallway smelled faintly of coffee and machine oil, punctuated by the low hum of fluorescent lights. Behind us, an officer closed the door to the tea room, sealing away the echoes of shattering porcelain and the weight of Victor Vance's betrayal. Inside the small interview room, Detective Harris sat behind a metal desk scattered with notepads and file folders. Opposite him, Lily's father, Richard Thornton, stood rigid, his dark suit impeccably pressed, yet rumpled at the shoulders as though he'd run to catch this meeting. His usual calm authority was replaced by weariness, lines etched deeper around his eyes. "Thank you both for coming," Harris began, sliding a steaming mug of coffee toward Richard. "Mr. Thornton, we need to clarify what happened today, and ensure your cooperation. Richard nodded, voice low. Of course. I want the truth to come out. He turned to Lily, whose green eyes were shadowed with guilt. Meg, he corrected himself. Lily, I'm sorry I doubted you. Lily swallowed hard but held his gaze. I only wanted to protect the lake, Father. I didn't think you'd go so far. Harris leaned forward. Mr. Thornton, evidence shows you commissioned construction plans to divert Sapphire Lake's water supply, and you employed Mr. Vance to suppress anyone who discovered the pipeline. Can you explain? Richard ran a hand through his silver-streaked hair. He closed his eyes for a moment, exhaling as if shedding years of denial. I was under enormous pressure. The board demanded quick returns on the resort investment. I thought, if I could secure that water source, the project would be profitable, and I could reinvest in conservation elsewhere. I believed I could control it all. Lily's cheeks flushed. You thought you could silence me with intimidation, but you never considered I'd go public. He flinched. I never wanted you hurt. His gaze flicked to me. And you, Mr. Harper, you protected her. I underestimated your resolve. I cleared my throat. Mr. Thornton, we have Vance's confession on camera. The push in the park, the shots fired in Stanley Park and the tea room. He admitted under arrest that he acted on your instructions. Richard's shoulders sagged. I realize now how foolish I was. I was so focused on preserving the company's interests that I lost sight of ethical responsibility. Detective Harris opened a leather folder and slid out the blueprints Ethan had secured at the tea room. These show the pipeline route, clearly marked through protected wetlands. This is criminal conspiracy to commit environmental destruction, plus accessory to attempted murder. Richard closed his eyes again, grief and shame mingling on his face. I'll accept whatever consequences follow, he said quietly. I want to make amends. Lily's voice trembled. How, Father? He looked at her, the stern businessman giving way to a father finally understanding his daughter. We'll halt all construction. I'll resign as CEO of Thornton Enterprises, donate my stock to a conservation trust, and personally fund restoration of any damage done. He turned to Detective Harris. And I will testify fully against anyone else involved. Ethan exhaled in relief. That's more than I expected. Detective Harris nodded. Your cooperation will be taken into account. You'll be contacted regarding formal statements, but right now, let's make sure Lily and Mr. Harper are safe. Richard stepped forward and took Lily's hand. Meg. Lily. I am so sorry. He squeezed her hand, You did the right thing. Lily's green eyes glistened. Thank you for listening. I watched the scene, feeling the tension dissolve into something like peace. The lake outside, the real prize of our struggle, would finally be protected. Vance's arrest would send a clear message that no amount of wealth justified violence or corruption. Detective Harris closed his notebook with a decisive thump. That's all for now. We'll reconvene in a few days once charges are filed. For your safety, Mr. Harper, you'll have an officer stationed near your hotel room until the case concludes. I nodded. Thank you, Detective. Richard placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Alex, I owe you my daughter's safety and my own redemption. If there's anything I can do to thank you. I smiled, shaking my head. Just keep your promise to the lake. He met my gaze, sincerity shining through. You have it. As we filed out of the interview room, Lily at my side and Ethan trailing behind with his recorder and camera, the gray morning light outside had brightened to soft gold. Through the precinct's large windows, I could see the tops of fir trees, swaying in the breeze, silent witnesses to our victory. On the walk back to the elevator, Lily slipped her hand into mine. Thank you, she whispered. I squeezed her fingers. We did it together. She looked up at me, a gentle smile lifting her face. Chapter closed. In that moment, with the weight of deception lifted, I knew this story would travel far, beyond video frames and printed pages. It would stand as proof that even the most powerful currents of corruption could be turned, and that, with courage and truth, we could protect the places that matter most. Great work today. Every moment you spend practicing brings you closer to mastering your English listening and speaking skills. Remember, progress comes with patience and consistency. If this story inspired you or helped you in your learning journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Easy English Spark channel for more lessons and stories. Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep believing in your growth. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and keep shining.